Guys, welcome. It's Wednesday afternoon. It is 1 p.m. You're listening to Life FM and you're listening to the Sandro and Meghan show. How are you guys doing? This is a weird week because it feels like Tuesday, but it's actually Wednesday. And, with all the public holidays in between, one that we had on Monday and one that's coming up on Friday, it's just a weird week because you don't really know if it was, where you are in the week. Like we had Sunday, but then Monday felt like Sunday. Yesterday felt like Monday. Today, I'm just lost. Apparently, it's Wednesday, not Tuesday. So it's just like, it's just weird. But it's awesome. For those of you guys who are working, be blessed. Work hard, work smart. And for those of you who got the luxury of having the long weekends and the public holidays off, enjoy it so much. But before we carry on, I just want to just welcome my beautiful co-host, Meghan. How are you doing?
I'm doing well, thank you so much. I'm having such a wonderful and such a fun week. To be real honest, this is I'm excited because it feels like kind of an end of a season, and this also includes. I believe that we'll be finishing our wonderful topic that was the key principles of biblical communication. Now, over the last while, we've I think today's episode 11, and we believe that this might be the final episode, and for a lot of other things, it's the end of the season. It's the beginning of something new. It's a little wintry. I'm not a fan of the cold. I don't like winter. I really don't. But I do love the season change, and the season change is always a really good reminder to me about what to look forward to and in the coming things.
But guys, before we get into it, it is the last show of this series of biblical communication. I hope you guys have enjoyed it. This is show 11, and we cannot wait to get with it after the song. So we'll be back right after this, guys. And we're back after that beautiful, wonderful worship song that you just listened to. I hope you guys are enjoying this. Yes, we've been going on. This is week 11 of biblical communication, and I hope you guys have enjoyed it. You know what? It's just been a wonderful journey for us as well. Meghan says, it's about time to do something else because there's just so much. We just highlighted the main key principles of biblical communication and examples of it. But today we're also going to look at studying a bit of the negative, because we looked at all the positive ways, what biblical communication is, how, what is biblical communication? How should we communicate to each other according to what the Bible says? We looked at examples of it as well. But today's the common pitfalls to avoid. And that's today's topic, the common pitfalls to avoid with biblical communication. And we get a lot of them. Yes, we do. And we are just going to highlight a few. And I think if you want to find out quite a lot, go read the book of Proverbs. You're actually going to find it right throughout the whole Bible, how we shouldn't communicate to each other, what we shouldn't be saying to each other. But I think the book of Proverbs highlights it so nicely. We've got two verses that we're going to pick up here in Proverbs, and one in Colossians in the New Testament. But I first want to start, before I head off to Meghan, I just want to quickly just read Proverbs 12 verse 18. That said, the words of the reckless pierce like swords, but the tongue of the wise brings healing. Now I want to focus on the first part. The words of the reckless pierce like swords. Now listen to this. Any rash words, any rash, hurtful words, they do pierce like swords because they hurt. When you call someone you useless or you good for nothing and you start swearing them, those are rash words coming at a rash time. Even if when you say, yeah, but look how stupid you've been, look what a stupid thing you've done. All these things, especially when it comes out of anger and bitterness, or when people make an innocent mistake, or even when they make a mistake and you constantly bombard them with this negative words, these ugly words, it pierces like swords. It pierces like a sword. It hurts you emotionally. It hurts you. I mean, how many times do you hear of emotional trauma or emotional bullying? And we get that a lot because people break you down. It's one thing to beat a person physically, physical abuse, but emotional abuse is sometimes even worse. I'm just going to give you one small little testimony. It wasn't emotional abuse, but just how Well, let me just tell you the story. I can't remember what I did. I was in high school. I was probably in standard 9, or for those of you these days, grade 11 or matric, somewhere along there. And, the one thing, I can't remember what I did, but I know I did something stupid. I was naughty, whatever it was. And normally I would get out. Look, my father didn't give me many hidings, but that day I deserved like 5 hidings, I think, to be honest with you, but just didn't tell my father that. But that day, my father just sat next to me on the bed, and all he said is, "I'm disappointed." And he walked away. Now, that alone was worse. I prefer the physical, in that sense, I prefer the physical abuse. Just smack me, get it over and done with. But he just walked away, and that pierced me. Look, he wasn't ugly. He was really disappointed because I made the mistake. And I'm not going to say he was wrong for saying it. He was actually right for saying that. But it's to show you how certain words can certain words can cause so much damage. For me, it was actually the opposite. It built me up because it just made me remind myself, or my father made me remind myself, that I'm much better than that. But I mean, if I look at my wife and I start swearing her, calling her ugly things, telling her that she's useless, that she's good for nothing, that she's ugly, how do you think she's going to feel? How do you think she's going to react afterward? Meghan?
Well, wife speaking, look, we've got a strong thing in our house, and this is something that's controversial, to say the least, amongst many family members. And we are very, very wary about how we speak at home and about what we say. And a lot of the times it's happened that, we'll have a moment where Sandra and I will get a little upset at each other, and we might say something destructive, and that would be a rash word. But you know what, the one thing that I find that's really, really important in those moments, especially, is we do take accountability when we have said rash words. But it's become such a I want to call it a practice in our house, that we are very mindful of what we say. And it's not that we're trying to be, and I've had family members look at me funny because they would make commentaries about our son, trying really, coming out of a really good place, being concerned family members, etc. And they would say certain things, and I would immediately interject. And it's not that I'm trying to be, this holistic type of hippie person. Don't say these things in front of my kid. It's more of a thing of, we're mindful, because the one thing I understand better than anything is the scars that you leave with your tongue go much deeper than the scars that you leave with your hand. And look, first of all, I just want to say we like, our son is very, very, very spoiled because he barely gets a hiding. He gets away with sweet murder in our house. Okay, but we are very mindful of how we speak to him. Now, actually, last night we had a bit of a moment. Me and my son had a bit of a tiff, and it was about supper or whatever else. And for the first time in a long time by me, he got a hiding. Right, for the first time in a very long time, he got a hiding.
Finally.
And you know what? It was a thing to me. Yeah, I felt very guilty giving him the hiding, but after the fact, I went back and made sure to speak to my son like the human being he is. Reassured him that he's not a bad person, but that was bad behavior. Because the one thing that I've learned growing up and coming through life is what we say, even though we don't always have clear intention with the things that we say. Sometimes we just say things because we're upset or we're a little emotionally excited, and we don't always mean what we say. But some things can stick with people much longer than we would like them to. I know there's things that's been said to me that I still think about to this day as an adult, that happened while I was in school. And I mean, the person who said it probably doesn't even remember that they said it. But I know that how these things affected me as a person and how it shaped my view on this world.
The one thing that we do also, like Meghan says, practice is we do have rash words or horrible words at certain times, especially, when you get those moments when you're frustrated, or when she does something or I do something and we'll say something, but later on we come and apologize to each other. Later on we'll go like, listen, I'm really sorry for that. I accidentally dropped the cup or whatever the case is, and and then she said something to me, I'll go apologize. It wasn't intentional, and she'll apologize, and we'll apologize to each other, and we'll put it behind us. because sometimes we leave it just there and nothing is done about it. We think it's over, but it's not, because the other person is still hurting. And this is what you got to watch out for. Because I can go back and go find a lot of things, like Meghan said. There's stuff being said to her, that she still thinks about, and other people just probably forgot that they said it. And I can probably go find many examples in my life, but I don't want to. I've moved past it. Now it's like, okay, what can I control today? How do I speak to my son? How do I speak to my wife? How do I speak to the people around me? How do I speak to the youth groups and the cell groups? And, how do I speak to, all my friends and my family? And that's something that we got to watch out for. The ones I was also, the one day I kind of stood up for someone, and someone said something to their wife. And I just stood up and I just said, listen, that's actually not a nice thing to say to your wife. I wasn't saying ugly. It was actually like a joke, but it was one of those jokes, that makes everyone laugh at the person. Like, kind of, it wasn't like really humiliating, but everyone laughed down at this lady. And I just stood up and I just said, no, that was actually ugly. And that kind of caused an awkward tension. But I'm like, no, I don't speak to my wife like that. You shouldn't be speaking to your wife like that. And since then, everything's made up, everything's fine, everything's perfect, and we still visit quite a lot. But now they start getting mindful about their words. And that is something that we really got to consider, because sometimes you say something that, it might be funny, but you don't know when, if you say something funny and it's a bit hurtful to one person and 5 other people are laughing, it might just be a joke in your mind and for the other people's minds, but for that person, it could really, really harm. They harm them inside. They or what do you call it? Their self-worth.
No person's self-worth is can ever equate to the cost of laughing at someone's expense. You know what? At the end of the day, when it comes to other people's expense, we'll get into this after the break, because I see I am running out of time, and I've got a bit of something to say here. So we'll be back right now. Enjoy the song, enjoy it, get your coffee ready, and we'll be back right after this.
Welcome back after the song. Yes, you're still listening to Life FM, and yes, you're still listening to the Sandro and Meghan show. Hope you guys are enjoying it, and if you're listening, you're of course listening on 98.1 FM in the Potchefstroom area, otherwise 100.6 FM in the Kosh area, or you're listening on www.lifefm.co.za. Otherwise, just download the app, the Life FM app, and then you can listen to Life FM everywhere you go on your phone. It just makes life so much easier.
And you can also go and catch all of our previous episodes on Life FM's content on demand on YouTube. You can go and scroll through. They've got all of your favorite shows lined up there, all of the previous episodes. So go ahead, go check it out, go like, subscribe, and follow. And but to get back into the key principles of biblical communication, the common pitfalls to avoid. We were saying just before the break, I was saying, when we laugh at somebody else's expense, no one's self-esteem costs enough to laugh at their expense. And this is something that I think, and this might not be a very, very liked commentary that I'm about to make, but I do believe that if you've got it within you to make someone the expense of your laughter, I find that those types of people are often insecure people who are deflecting their own insecurities to people that stand on a superior ground from their insecurities. And if you're understanding what I'm saying, making a fool of somebody else is making a fool of you, because it's showing everyone that you're insecure about a certain thing that this person has either achieved or they're standing on a firm ground on.
Yeah, and you know what? You got to be careful of that. But we're going to move on now, as we still got another 2 more verses we just want to share with you, 2 more points of the common pitfalls to avoid. The one is lying and slandering. Proverbs 10 verse 18 says, whoever conceals hatred with lying lips and spreads slander is a fool. Now, when you start gossiping, when you start spreading malicious lies, when you start spreading rumors about people, guys, that destroys people. It can destroy people's reputations. It can destroy their image. It can, first of all, it's going to destroy trust. Because, do you want to be around the gossip, Megan? Do you really? No, I don't think so. Because you know what, once people find out that you gossip about them, or you're starting to spread rumors about them, or you're lying about them, it breaks trust. And when other people find out that you are lying, that you actually, you lied about certain things, they're going to view you for a very long time as a liar, and they're actually going to start avoiding you because, you know what? I don't want to hang out with a person who intentionally goes around gossiping and intentionally creates rumors and intentionally creates, or intentionally goes out to go lie about other people just to have gossip and just to, start a conversation and to make themselves look good. Because I know when they're talking to me, but what do they say about me behind my back then? And I don't want to be that person. What do you think, Megan?
No, I absolutely agree. You know what? I actually I have someone close to me actually who I at one stage really, really trusted, and then this person, all of a sudden, all the things that I only ever told this person started coming to me through other vines, and I all of a sudden realized, you know what? And my first thought was, now, who would have gotten a hold of the story? I only told one person, and that person I can't see that person ever doing such a thing. Just to come out later and find out that it was in fact said person who went around and shared my personal story and details with other people. And I've been very avoidant of this person ever since, and it's not because I don't want to spend time with this person. It's because I don't want to be vulnerable to this person anymore and have that vulnerability come out to other people.
And let's be honest, you just don't trust them with your personal things anymore. That's just plain simple. Let's be honest here.
And I just don't trust this person with my vulnerability anymore.
And you're probably not going to for a long time, if ever. Hopefully you will. Hopefully that bridge gets drawn. But you know what? This is what happens, guys. You must watch out that you don't become that person. And people are doing it to you, rather cut them off or separate yourself from them because it just causes more drama, and we're not list for drama. Well, Megan's got a verse there, and this is the last verse we got. And we just want to touch on this. And this is about anger and malice. It's from Colossians 3 verse 8. But listen to this so nicely, because this is actually this verse alone is actually a whole sermon by itself. It's a whole radio show by itself, but we're going to try and do it in 5 minutes.
The verse says, but now you must put them all away. Anger, wrath, malice, slander, and obscene talk from your mouth.
Read verse 9 as well.
Do not lie to one another, seeing that you have put off the old self with its practices, and have put on the new self, which is being renewed in knowledge after the image of its creator.
Okay, sorry, just to go, because whilst I was reading, I saw it, and it spoke about lying again, and it spoke about, carrying on. Don't go do that stuff. Put off the old stuff. Put off that ugly part of you. You know what? You must put away them all. Anger, wrath, malice, slander, and obscene talk from your mouth. Dirty jokes. One thing that I know, I used to be a big Joyce Myers fan back in the day, and that's thanks to my auntie. She used to listen to a lot, and we used to drive a lot together for work. And she loved listening to Joyce Meyer. And the one thing that Joyce Meyer kind of said about her husband was that when he was still working, I think he was in construction, you would, a lot of times in the beginning, you would eat with the guys, and when they had lunch, they'd all have lunch together. But then later on, she found out that he'd always sit alone. And then when she asked him why, she said, but these people are, they're ever telling dirty jokes, they're crude, there's a kind of thing of they don't have respect, those naughty, dirty jokes that, I'm not just going to say men like to tell, but in that environment, it was just men. And he says, but I don't want to be a part of it. So he cut himself off. He actually would sit alone, and he never really made friends at that work before they really went into full-time ministry and became the Joyce Myers ministry as it is today. But he pushed himself back from it. And I'm like, wow. Do you know what? Because even though it's funny, and it actually takes you down the cycle, then you start losing you'll start losing respect from a man's point of view. I've seen this. In company of other men, especially when I was saved, when one guy will start, talking about another woman and degrading her, and all of a sudden we all fall in line. And I think men will know what we're talking about, how ugly it can get and how perversive it can get. For women, I hope you guys don't understand it because I don't want that ever spoken about you because it's never nice. But you know, then you start actually. I started disrespecting women in general just because I was hanging out with these people. I mean, the more you speak it, the more you start believing it without even realizing it. And I actually look down at women as like, no, you're just a piece of meat. You're just there to stay in the kitchen and make babies, and that's all you are. Because of the friends group I had, and that's just the view we had until I got saved. And the Lord made me actually, rebuke myself for it. He actually made me repent of it. And I'm glad of that because, malice talk is horrible. But guys, when you're angry, watch what you say. There's one thing that I know me and Megan don't always agree on. An angry person and a drunk person will always tell you the truth of what's in their hearts. We don't exactly agree on this. That's what I believe. But guys, when you're angry, watch your words. Jesus was angry. He went into the temple. And he never smashed the tables. He turned the tables over, and he was taking them on. He was rebuking them, but he never swore. He never sinned, and that's something to practice. Because when you're angry, let's be honest, there's like red mist in front of your eyes, and your mind goes blank, and you just lose it. That's difficult, but that's something we can practice.
Absolutely, and it's something that, again, when it comes to speaking. Getting back to gossip, and angry gossip to me is the worst because we speak death over people. And we don't always realize the power that our tongues carry. And when you speak death over another human being, you know what? You are cursing that human being. And I just wish a lot more people understood how deeply this affects a lot more things than just, I just made a bad comment, or me and a group of friends were standing and this person came up in conversation, but I'm so mad at them, so I said X, Y, and Z. And you know what? We don't realize what that does, not just to that person, but to ourselves. Speaking those things, you allow hatred to enter into your heart, and hatred has no place in a Christian's heart.
And also to the people around you, because you're speaking to that angry tone of voice. If they're agreeing with you, they've got a perception about that other person that they don't even actually really know what happened between you two guys, and they start hating that other person. So you see how it's negatively affects not just you and that person, but the others around you're speaking to. Guys, unfortunately, I hope you guys have enjoyed this series. It's been a nice little 11-show series. It is the end of it. Unfortunately, we have run out of time, but we'll be back next week. Cannot wait. Blessings. Enjoy the shift of the season, and we'll speak again soon. Blessings, guys.